Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jonathan Taylor. I'm the Technical Marketing Manager for Civil Survey Solutions. And it's my pleasure to welcome you here today for our technical webcast, Data Sharing with Civil 3D and Civil Site Design. We have also your presenters today, Shane O'Rourke and Todd Brewster. Guys, are you there?
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Excellent. Well, we'll come to who was who just in a second, because obviously at the moment there's two of them on the line. So, just for your information, folks, we are running these webcasts remotely, so all of us are actually running them from our own homes. So, technically, if there are any potential issues with connections, etc., then you'll hopefully be understanding with us. Really, that just leaves me to introduce the team to you. So first we've got Shane O'Rourke. He's our Manager of Technical Services, product guru, because there isn't really anything that Shane doesn't know about, just generally, as well as related to software products that we offer. Wealth of experience, been with the business for an extremely long time. And we've also got Todd Brewster. Todd, you may have seen his name if those of you that have used Civil 3D for a while and have actually looked at our Civil 3D template, you may have seen Todd's name even on the template. So if you've got any issues with that template, you now know who to blame, and you can contact him accordingly for any problems. Obviously, that's a big joke. Obviously, it's a fantastic template, Todd. You put a lot of work into that. So yes, but Todd, you came back to us, what, February?
Yes, start of Feb.
Fantastic, cool. Well, look, really, unless you guys have got anything else, we may as well begin in earnest. So, Todd, I'll hand over to you.
So, today we're going to have a look at data sharing using Civil 3D and the Civil Site Design packages. With the world's current events going on, it's never been a better time to actually look at ways of working collaborative with your projects and your colleagues. Civil 3D combined with Civil Site Design gives you the flexibility to share your data. In Civil 3D, you can use the data shortcuts to share your civil data, things like surfaces and alignments. And Civil Site Design's data share allows you to share out your road strings, road network elements, strings, pipe networks, and other things. The ability to read and modify the shared data resides in the source drawing, wherever it came from, whether it's Civil 3D or Civil Site Design, and the recipient essentially reads that information. It's read-only. There are a multitude of ways that you could actually approach this. And just getting my typical workflow moving. So what we're going to look at today is the element thing in the middle here is our data store. User 1 and user 2 are Shane and I. We're going to look at putting data into the storage. So that's our Civil 3D data shortcuts and our drawing. Then the other user is going to suck that information out, create their own models of it, model up in Civil Site Design, share the information back into the data store. Then from the data store, the other user is going to take that information out, amalgamate that back into their original model, do a few more modifications, push the information back into the model, back into the data store, and then the other user again is going to take that information out and finalize the models. So how do we do the share? You could use a VPN, virtual private network. You could use a product called BIM 360, which is part of Autodesk products, or you could look at using a cloud storage mechanism, something like OneDrive or Dropbox or something like that. VPNs are pretty useful. They're secure. They have user access control. It's a single location for all of your project data. Can have complications with regards to the internet speed or latency. There is no version control. It is one source of information. BIM 360 integrated with your Autodesk products. It's seamless when you open up something like Civil 3D. It's secure. It has user access control. There's drawing version control. There's compare functionality in there. It's cloud-based. You can actually access your drawings on the cloud from anywhere you want to be. You can mark it up. It again, depending on your internet connection as to how fast things upload and download. Cloud storage, something like Dropbox, as I mentioned. It's a local project on your machine that is synced up to the cloud in the background. The setup can be made so that others can share that information. Can be a bit challenging when you're working with the data shortcuts within Civil 3D. So what we're going to look at today is using the VPN. We're going to actually use the Civil Survey Solutions server sitting in Notting Hill. Shane and I are both in our offices, in our homes as we speak, all in the order of about 30 k's apart from each other. All right, so I've gone in and set up a data store already so that we can get us started and leapfrog into the first section. So this is the first step. This is creating our surfaces and alignments, which I've already created. That's this drawing file sitting here. And what I'm going to do is show you how to share that information out, house it all into the data store location, and then I'm going to hand over to Shane, who's going to take the next step. So what I'm going to do is open up that drawing. So this is loading the drawing directly from our VPN. So across the top here, you can see the drawing name, and you can see that it's actually got a weird address. It's actually called a UNC address. It's a Unified Naming Convention. I'll talk about the methods of setting up your share in a minute when I actually create the data shortcut connection. So this drawing here is nothing complicated. It's a terrain model. So it's my surface sitting here from my surveyor. And I've mapped out a proposed alignment layout for a small subdivision that I want to work on down here in the bottom. So Civil 3D has the ability to share a multitude of civil data, not just surface and alignments, which is what we're looking at today. But over here in your prospector and your Civil 3D interface, section down the bottom here where my cursor is the data shortcut component. So in here, you can share out surfaces, alignments, pipe networks, pressure networks, corridors, view frames. All that information can be backwards and forwards between multitude of users. The way it works is you need to set up a connection to what's called a working folder. So that's kind of like the housing of where your information sits. And then within that house, you actually set up a project folder. So let me show you how that works. So I come in here and I need to go and find my server address. So in this case, I'm going to use a UNC map. And the reason I'm doing that is the storage mechanism that Civil 3D uses for the data shortcuts are all absolute in terms of the source location. So in this case, it's a network address that looks something like that. If I used a map drive, which would be something more like one of these folders here, then the person that's potentially using the connection in the next step has to have the same map, because the letter of the drive, whether it's like V or M or something like that, needs to be consistent between the two connections. Doesn't matter which way you go, as long as you're consistent. So that's my location for my working folder. The project is the next thing I need to create. So in this case here, I'm going to create a new project folder, and I'm going to call it C3D data. Oops. Data. I can't even spell today. So I make that folder, and now I have the capacity to begin to export all of my information. So the first thing I want to export out will be the surface and the alignments that I've got drawn in here. So I come over here again and I go, I want to create a data shortcut. And it will assess all of the elements within the drawing I'm looking at the moment and allow me to pick anything that is data shortcuttable. So I'm going to take all my surfaces, all my alignments, and I'm going to click on OK. And then the software will go through and create connections to those things in the data store at the other end. Now I'm going to hand over to Shane, who's going to take over and access all this information and do the next step. So over to you, Shane.
Okay. So look, thank you, Todd. So Todd has put up on the VPN, which is our common server when we're at work. That would be our common drive. He's put that up, and I can grab that. I'm supposed to be showing a slide right now, so let me just get that slide poking up in front of you. There we go. So I need to take a step back here. Todd has gone and placed the data in a place that I can get to, right? So as we discussed, or as Todd discussed, VPN, BIM 360, OneDrive, Dropbox could all be places where Todd could place not just the drawing, but also the data shortcuts. If we thought about the drawing is me grabbing it. Todd can't work on it while I've got it. I could edit it, put it back into that common source location and continue working. What Todd's actually done is partitioned out the data that he wants me to use. Now, I could be the designer, or I could be a draftsperson, or I could be a combination. I could be preparing the final plans, or I could be taking Todd's information in order to augment it with some more design. Anyway, there's step 2. So I'm going to take Todd's data. I am going to create some roads, curb returns, and cul-de-sac on that data set, so I'm going to embellish it. And then what I'm going to do is show the process of sharing this back to Todd so that we can collaborate at a meaningful level. So, okay, so hopefully everybody's seeing my Civil 3D screen. This is the Start tab. One thing just to point out, we did mention BIM 360. So this is an Autodesk application that allows you to manage your project data. And certainly it's got a big focus on Autodesk data. We could have used BIM 360 as a connection. Just to point out the difference, when I'm in the Start tab, any drawings that say cloud is actually me saving that data in the BIM 360 interface, right? And Todd and I both leverage BIM 360, told to be able to see my drawing, get version control, all that sort of stuff. So anything that says cloud is actually leveraging BIM 360, and it is integrated. So I can go directly to the BIM 360 folder, which turns up in Windows Explorer as well. But I could open up any of these projects, and anything that I have access to, I could download, edit, and put back up with version control. But we're not working that way today. We're VPNing today. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a brand new drawing. And I will do that with a deliberate drawing template. So give me a moment while I flip around my options here. So I'm going to use the standard ANZ drawing template. And really what I want to show you is that as basically a receiver of information, I can stylize completely different to Todd. Okay, so Civil 3D has styles. I build on a different drawing template to Todd. Now I'm just going to save this. Currently I'm going to save it locally. So it doesn't really matter where I save it, but I'm going to put it here, call it road model. And what I'm now going to do is make the connection to Todd. So if you remember, Todd used the data shortcut connection. I'm going to do exactly what Todd did. I'm going to set up the working folder, and I just need to poke jiggery to the VPN. So that's, if I get this right. Okay, so Todd's data is sitting up here in, which one? I just need to be here. This is your,
no, you're setting the working folder, Shane.
Working folder is data store, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
I always get that wrong. And then downstream for there, I then create
you set the project shortcut. That one.
Yeah.
That's it.
Todd's already created it. So once I've got that connection, I'm now looking at that data that Todd's created, right? So through that data shortcut, I'm then basically driving to the drawing, seeing what I want out of the drawing, and I can just drag it straight into my new drawing to create that data. Okay, so
can I interrupt for a sec, Shane?
Sure.
I just want to highlight the point that I was making about the UNC and the map drives. If you can see down in Shane's data shortcut that says source location for that surface down the bottom, that's where you can pick up whether or not you've made a mapped connection or a UNC connection. And when I get the screen back off here, Shane, I'm going to actually show the users, if they do that, there is a function in the software that you can actually use to fix it if you've done it one way or the other.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Todd. So I'm going to go to alignments, and I can see all the alignments that Todd has created. And what I'm going to do is grab them all. So one thing to know is you can right click on individuals and pull them across, but if you highlight a group, hold down Shift and drag them in, then you'll create them all at once. Now, just before I do that, I'll do a zoom extents. There's the surface, and then I'm dropping across the alignments. So that's just pulling from the VPN now, or through the VPN to what's saved on the server. And in a moment, I will have some alignments in here. So we actually have a dynamic connection. I've got a different drawing, saved locally, but I can actually receive whatever changes Todd might make. So as soon as Todd makes a change at his end and saves, I'm going to feel that change. All right.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I just did that, Shane. Just interrupt. I decided the alignments weren't the way I wanted, and I made a few changes.
right. Okay. So what will happen to me in a moment is I will get a message to update my data shortcuts. Right. So once the VPN's settled, I will sort of be prompted down in the bubble down the bottom right. And I'd say that's happening right now. So there we go. So if I hit synchronize, I can now see any changes that Todd has made, right? So it's now running through and updating, and we can see that Todd's put a curl on the lawn street here. So
I'm trying to keep
we do
it
have dynamic
interesting.
connection. New alignments can be created. They'll turn up in the store here, and I can pull them out of the store. So what I'm going to do now is talk to you about the civil site design aspect of sharing. So with civil site design, the first thing to know is that when you're doing your design, you have a data folder, and anybody who's used civil site to know this, and know this quite well, particularly if you change the drawing name. You've then had to copy out the data folder. So first thing I just want to point out is that at any time, and I'm at the start of my project here, I haven't made anything, I can actually set the data path. So what this means is that I can tell the software that there is a fixed location for where the data lives. And basically what will happen is no matter where I move this drawing to, inside the drawing is written the path to where the data lives. Okay, so if I go and do this, if I go and set the data path, I'm setting a fixed location for the data, right? So again, I repeat, the benefit is it doesn't matter where I move the drawing to, doesn't matter what I name it, it's now going to reference this location for the data. Okay, so I'm going to call this road model. Now, it gives you some options. So I haven't actually started anything, so I can just move the data across because it's a brand new job, but you might actually make copies. So one thing about setting the data path is not just that you can move the drawing anywhere and still look at the same data folder, but it does give you a modicum of revision control, because you could copy to a different folder. So you could say, okay, I did a design, road model, milestone 1 or revision 1. I can then go copy, and I could create a revision 2 folder. And that drawing would then always look for the revision 2 folder for data. Okay, so anyway, I'm moving that across. It's telling me here, that's where it lives currently. This is where I'm going to put it. And I've now sort of saved that data to a different spot to the drawing. And this is great because it does mean that I can save this drawing, which is currently on my local drive, up to the VPN. And that's what I'm going to be doing for the data shortcut side of things. So let's quickly knock out a road design. So I'm not going to do anything fancy here. I'm just going to sweep through, use all the nice quick tools in the software to build something. So I'm just saying that all of those are roads, and that this auto create tool will make all those roads with the intersections. They're going to sweep through and create all the curb returns at once. Now we know that we can go to each curb return and individually address them, change the dimensions and behaviors, but I'm just quickly ramping out some sort of design, and I'm also going to create a cul-de-sac, and I'm going to give it a very cool name called cul-de-sac. I'm going to pick this road, and I'm hitting the end of the road. I've got this code that I'm connecting to. It's going to make a very simple cul-de-sac. I'm going to pick where the cul-de-sac passes through, and that means I don't actually have to worry about the start chainage. And then I'm just going to put on some dimensions here for the entry curve, the radial curve, and the exit curve. Create the alignment. Okay, happy with that. It's passed through the point asked to. I'm going to create a string. It's going to build the cul-de-sac, cut out the road where it overlaps. I now have a model of sorts to play with. So this is really just to create some data so that I could share it with Todd, and we could see how we could collaborate as a collective. So in order for me to share to Todd, I need to make sure that both Todd and I are using the same alignments and referencing the same surfaces. Okay, so I haven't made a new surface to reference, but I've certainly made some new alignments, and I need to get them into the data shortcut list. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to save this drawing up onto the VPN. Okay, so through the VPN, I'm going to save it to the server. So just opening up that folder now, and I think Todd's much closer to the exchange than I am.
No, that shortcut link doesn't work.
That one should be cool.
It's white, so it should be yellow if it works.
All right. Go the hard way.
0.02.
Oh, there we go.
This is everybody why it pays to probably map your drives, but make the mapping consistent between users. And then you don't have to remember server addresses.
10.0.
0.2. That's it.
There we go. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to put that, I'll put that right here. We'll call this one road model. Okay, so I don't need to do anything to repath my data shortcut folder, right? The project folder is exactly where I want it to be because it's related to this project. But what I am going to do is park in the alignments we've created. So we've created a whole bunch of alignments for curve returns and one for cul-de-sac. So we can see my VPN save is taking its time, but it'll go up in a sec.
It should be there now.
There we go. So all you do is you say you want to create data shortcuts, just like Todd did. The software's smart enough to ascertain which ones you own and which ones you've referenced, so I can pull all those across. Once I click OK, it will then start parsing that information across to Todd through the data shortcut. So we will eventually see this list grow, and it will include the alignments that Todd needs to work with. Assume that's actually happened now. I think my time is to hand back to you, Todd, and give you a push at reading this stuff in. Now, just before I say that, I've done half the job. So what I've done is I've shared with Todd the Civil 3D side of things. Now we need to talk about civil site design. So to share your civil site design data, we actually have a dedicated set of tools to do that. And you'll see up the top in the ribbon that there's a tab up there called Data Share. So I'm just waiting for my drawing to give me control back. And it says here for me, my internet connection is unstable. Normally straight after that, it gives me control back. It says, I'm sorry, Shane, I'll fix things up.
It's still saving to the VPN, I can see it.
Right, okay.
Just while we're waiting, folks, if you have got any questions that you want to pop into the Q&A panel, feel free to pop them in when we've got little breaks like this where we're just waiting for the data to upload. It's a great opportunity to answer some. So if you want to pop a Q&A,
should be right now, Shane.
Q&A, go for it.
Cool. Thank you, Todd. Todd's predicted my future admirably. Okay, so data share. All right, so civil site design, if you have AutoCAD or BricsCAD that you're sitting on top of, if you have a CAD-based platform, alignments and surfaces go into the civil site design data share. Because we're using Civil 3D, we separately send off the Civil 3D data, which is the surfaces and alignments, and then we're working on the civil site design information. So for Todd to get access to what I've designed, I need to use the Create Share tool in the data share panel. There's two sort of parts to this. One is sharing the data. So this is me gifting to Todd my design. And if I change my design, I click on Sync Share, and Todd would get that immediately at his end. What Todd will do at his end is read the folder that I create. So essentially in civil site design, you say you want to create a share. All you need to do is to pick an output location, right? So I am going to set here for the VPN. Actually, we don't need to worry about this. I've got a map drive. So there's the public drive. I go data store. I'll put it in here. Okay, so straight into this location, I'm going to save the civil site design information. Roads, you'll see roads. You see pipe networks, surfaces. And if I had used civil site design to create alignments, they'd be here as well. So I choose what I want to share. I will say if you do make total model, we recommend you don't share that. Let every user make their own total model. The software doesn't let you make surface duplicates, which is fine. But if I made total model, it would sort of restrict Todd from maybe adding more roads and building his own version of total model. But you can see here, I've got a path where I'm saving that data to. Once I click OK, what it actually does is it parks into the VPN. Through the VPN, parks into the public drive, the core data that I've asked for here. And I can choose to give Todd any level of information I want out of the pool. So if you've never done a data share before with civil site design, use it for two reasons. One is that you can certainly collaborate. You can do part of a road design, hand it over. Todd could then, or the second person could then take it and stage in and connect into this design. You might do it based on sort of an industry division. You might have road designers doing the road design. You might have stormwater designers taking the road design as a base in order to lay out stormwater networks and share that way. So the share sort of works for one big project split up into bits, and also for the case of different sort of focuses, people designing different aspects. All right, so I will lose control in a moment and Todd will take over and show you how this data could be shared back to Todd.
Okay.
Just a quick one, guys, just to follow up on really what Shane had basically what Shane had done there. Got a question come in which basically says, look, in this current version of Civil Site Design 20.3, can you share all the road strings? Was it the case that in older versions you could only share, for example, the center line? From my knowledge, the software or this particular aspect or data sharing within Civil Site Design hasn't actually changed since it was created. Am I correct, guys?
There's only been one small change, which Todd's going to click this button called multi-folders. It's probably the only change.
Yeah.
This was built specifically so that you could take the full cross-section information that you build as part of the string creation right through. So it was always set up so that what you see on the screen, what you saw on the screen that I had, all of that data goes across. So it's the full cross sections, the reference templates, variations, all that information would be fed across.
Yep. Great. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
No problems. Okay, so now I'm going to take that information Shane has so graciously provided. So this is step 3 on the PowerPoint here. So I'm going to reference all the new stuff in terms of the Civil 3D alignments, the Civil Site Design data, and then I'm going to create a few new things myself, and then I'm going to share it all back, and then Shane's going to assemble it all at his end. Okay, so here's my drawing. So the first thing that I want to do in this one is to actually connect in and take all those new alignments that Shane had created. So all the curb return stuff, all the cul-de-sac stuff. So over in my workspace over here, if I expand out the alignments, I can see now that there's a long list of alignments in here, which is different to what's in my drawing. So just like Shane, I'm going to grab the alignments, I'm going to pick them all, and I'm going to create a reference to them. And it'll go through and it'll warn me that I've got some that I've already created. That's okay. I'm going to ignore that warning, and then I'm just going to keep going and create all the other ones. So it's going through at the moment, accessing all the information off the VPN and creating all the alignments. So now you can see there's a whole heap of alignments extra in my drawing. So there's the cul-de-sac, all the curb returns have all come in. And the styles for mine are different to Shane's. So it's just to reinforce the point that it's kind of independent on one version to another. The data is exactly the same, but the way I choose to see it may be different to the way Shane chooses to see it. Still the same alignments, still the same surface. Okay, so that's part of the connection made. So I've connected all my civil alignments in. Now I need to make the connection in for my road information. So conversely to Shane, where he created the share, I'm going to go and read the share. So in here, I click on read share and get this presented with this form. You can actually connect and share to multiple components, and Shane's actually going to show you that in the next step, where he connects back into my stuff. But to facilitate that and to continue on with what Shane was talking about, what's changed in the share, which has been in the software for a while, is this multi-folder concept. So traditionally, you had to click on add share and you had to add in a connection to each individual share connection that you were trying to use. Multi-folder allows you just to pick a primary folder and it will assess all the shares within that folder for you. So if I click on multi-share and then I go and navigate to my location, so I'm going to the public drive, going to the data store, go into the CSD data, and in there you can see there's the road model one, which is the one Shane created. But if there was more than one, it would allow me to pick all of them by just picking this parent folder CSD data. So click on OK, and it will identify the connection and then identify all of the components that are accessible through that connection. So I want all of the roads, all of the curbs, all the cul-de-sacs. There are no alignments, no pipe networks or surfaces to connect to. Click on OK, and the software will go through and make a connection to each of those.
Guys,
Yes?
go. Just while we're doing that, interesting question. I'm just hoping that I've interpreted it correctly. If Shane created a multitude of different templates that have been applied to these road strings, so for example, you probably applied a generic 6 meter template, but he had a custom template. He shared that file, and then Todd, you're now opening it up. Do you, Todd, have access, or does Todd have access to that particular template that's being applied, even though it's not something that he's, originally created?
Yeah, this is a really good question, and it was a challenge that we actually came up against probably in the last 6 months that this issue occurred. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a brand new template. So you're not looking at my screen, but I'm going to make a copy of that magical template, and I'll make it 9 meters wide just so it's different. But I'm going to create right now a unique template from what I'm doing, and I'm going to share that to Todd while he's not looking. So while Todd's playing around, I'm going to apply this change. So just keep an eye at the end of DeLawn Street. 2 things I'm going to change. One's the vertical, but I'll also apply a unique template. So I'm making a local one called 9 meters wide, right? So Todd doesn't have that, but I'm making it, I'm applying it now. So Todd, at some point while you're mucking about, pushing buttons, expect to see a change.
No problems. So I've just opened up that DeLawn design that Shane was just referring to. So there's the vertical design of that. And it looks like I can edit this thing. And it gives you the pretense you could. You could actually come in and move something, but it doesn't stick. The moment Shane fixes the share, it'll all resort to what Shane actually had. So if I actually go whole hog and, oops, go to the right button this time, delete the whole lot, reset it to 1, and then close out of it.
So Todd, I just hit sync share. I think in a moment, the next time you flick something, you'll see a change, the tail end of DeLawn Street.
Yep, I can see the share synchronizing up on the VPN right now. So once the share finishes its sync up to the VPN, if I refresh the connection, you should actually see the modifications that Shane's done.
So all you need to do, Todd, is run a command. Like any command that you run is going to trigger a change.
Yep, so let's go and try and access the vertical grading. So there you go. Everyone picked up on the fact that that actual end of DeLawn Street that I twisted on him in the first place has actually widened out. So if you actually have a look at the alignment here, you can see that from Chainage 300, Shane's probably applied that new template.
So Todd, if you open the design data form, so it'll be a good proof for people to see. You should see in there that extra template.
Yep.
Now
So,
we did talk about read only, so the buttons are grayed out for you to make new.
yep. So see, I can't modify anything here, can't add changes. And that new entry that Shane put in is sitting here from change 300 onwards. He's got his 9-meter wide template. So any changes that I pretended to make to that job, which I did before.
Does that template, guys, exist in the template editor?
Yep, I'll have a look at that in a sec.
No
just wanted to show the vertical grading. See how I reset the whole thing to flat, whereas it's taken Shane's new design, which is interesting concept, Shane, with the 5-meter fill over here.
Well, you know, flat wasn't awesome either.
Fair enough. Templates. So what did you call the new one, Shane?
I call it 9-meter wide.
You
You might not see it in here.
Yeah.
It's sort of part of the data share.
Yeah, which is what I was expecting. If you wanted to share your templates from one user to another, it's just a matter of pushing them into the local and global folders and opening up another project. The share is like a read-only connection. So the elements for that model are read-only to that particular.
Yeah. So if users are desperate to get access to that template to modify it or adjust it, they would need to use that template options button and import. So under template options, there's import and export. So I would export the template as a file and then Todd would
Place it on the
import it as a
VPN or
file.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is assuming that we're not sharing our settings folder, because we could actually have a network location for our settings folder as well.
And have a common set of templates.
Yeah, which would be slow over the VPN, but could be done.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple of options there of sharing your templates from one project to another. Yeah, I'm going to abandon changes because I didn't do any. Okay, so I've now got all of Shane's lovely road design models connected in. So I'm going to make a few extra things. So I'm going to perhaps make a grading object, or grading string, sorry, over here. Some sort of basin or something, I don't know. This is all care and no responsibility. So let's make it a basin. Yeah, it's probably a reasonable height. That'll do. Okay, so a bit flat on this side, but that'll do. So there's a gradient object string that I've created here, and let's go in and put in some pipe data. So we shall go in and make just a pretty straightforward pipe network, but I want to highlight the point that I can connect into all the information that Shane's created for me. So just like with a project you were working on, if you're doing the whole thing yourself, I can still connect my pits to roads if I choose to. And I can choose to then just place them wherever I want. So let's put one in here, let's put another one over here, make a branch. Let's make a network out of this. Assume we're draining to this point. Now I've got pipe and pits. Let's sequence the system. So I haven't actually gone into the effort of putting a catchment on it. It's not needed to show what I do, but if I do really want to go into it, I can go in and apply catchments. That would size all the pipes. Perhaps I will go in and resize one of these just to make something look a little different than the normal defaults that I pick. Let's make that maybe a 300 and make the bottom one a 525, something dramatic. All right, and let's put the numbering in here as well. So let's go pit number, line number, dash those. All right. So let's assume that I've actually gone through and actually drained the entire subdivision correctly, but for the sake of the exercise, this is going to be more than enough to show you what is going to happen when I export all this stuff back out. So what I need to do now is come back up to the data share, and then this time it's my turn to create a share. So I go create share, and this time it will pick only the things in my model that I've created. So the GRL1 is the grading string that I created. Total model was made, which I do not want to export. Shane mentioned before, the total models are best left to being a user-based thing. If you do try and share it, you'll get conflicts between one total model and the other. It'll warn you about it. I definitely want to share out the pipe network, given that I went to the effort of making one. I want to share out the grading string and the alignment, which is the polyline control for the grading in the first place. So I want to share all that information with Shane so that he can see it in his drawing. Pick my location. So once again, I'm going to go up to our VPN, go to my data store, go to the CSD data location. You can see there's the share from Shane's one. Click on OK, click on OK. It will go through and it will export out all of the information from my project that I've selected, push it all up into the VPN. Once that's done, which looks like it is getting close to being done, then it is time to send it off to Shane so that he can go and finish off. So Shane.
Thank you very much. So, look, this is a cycle, right? So Todd and I are doing sort of two pushes, I guess, but you could continue this journey. So this is a total cyclical process. Where I'm at now is, or where we're at now, Todd and I both in the journey together. Todd's created Civil 3D, plane geometry, surface geometry, shared that with me. I have augmented that with some design using Civil Site Design. I've shared back to Todd the additional alignments I need as part of that design, and also the design. Todd's able to view, use that design. He can do volume calcs. He can build cross sections and long sections as he wills. The edit, however, is with me. Now, what Todd has done is gone and created on top of that detention basin pipe network. I'm going to read that in. So essentially, Todd's drainage designer today. I'm road designer today, but we're sharing data. So my job now is to read that in, use that information as part of this overall design and presentation. Now, you never saw this, but what I did after I made an edit to DeLorme Street here, change the template, change the vertical design, was to run sync share, right? And that was me pushing the data changes from this design back through into that share folder. Okay, so if you create a share, you run sync share whenever you want to park the changes you've made to the design back into that folder, right? A little bit different to Civil 3D. We actually park a copy of the data into that share folder, and that's why Todd can just sort of peel it out. Okay, so I'm going to go run read share. I'm going to connect up using that multi-folders option to the location on the public drive where we're sharing our data. And again, I don't need to drill down to the individual drawings where it's creating these folders, or the shares are represented with these drawing names. I can just grab that top tree with multi-folders. Now, what it's going to do is going to show me the data that I've already given to Todd, which obviously I don't want to give back to myself because I don't need to, but there's Todd's contribution back to me. So I'm going to take the grading surface, I'm going to take the pipe network, I'm going to take the grading string, and that would actually force me to also take the grading alignment. Okay, so the polyline that you create, the polyline you use to create a grading string, Civil Site Design is shadowing that with an alignment. So, you know, the user doesn't see that, doesn't need to worry about it, but you'll see it turns up in the share folder. So once I click OK, that data will pull across, and I can now use that data in design. So there's
Shane,
the pipe network. Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. Very quick question, just in regards to kind of what you're doing at the moment. If, for whatever reason, you happen to have made some changes and haven't hit sync and close down the drawing, what are the ramifications of basically not syncing? Will you lose your information?
No, you don't lose any information because this drawing, whatever I do in this drawing, is saved in my local data folder. So don't forget, we have, if I go to show data path, right, in this path location is where my live data is. So this is my working data folder, let's call it that. That's my working, you know, ongoing data folder. Okay, so if I close this drawing, and I reopen it, I'm accessing that folder. I'm not accessing the data share or doing anything to that. So if I made a change and I closed and reopened, nothing happens to the data share folder. The data share folder here would be completely unchanged. Now, it gets updated, right, the moment I decide in the data share here to sync the changes back. So there's sort of two data folders, right? There's the one that's driving my project, okay, which is, I mean, I can go and open it, but if we go and open the data folder, this is where I decided to store the data. Remember, I set the data path. I decided to store my data here. So this is my data that I drive. But when I want to share it to somebody else, I create a share folder. And if I make a change to the design, I simply run sync share. And as soon as I do that, next time Todd makes a move at all, he will feel those changes. So every time you run a command in Civil Site Design, it's checking that data store and going, oh, is there anything I can update? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, look, I suppose the main one is if you've been working away for 2 or 3 hours, you've made a whole heap of changes. Todd's working, remotely, and he's waiting for those changes. You save the drawing, close it down, walk away from your desk. Because you haven't clicked sync share, Todd is not going to receive those changes that you've made.
Not until you hit sync share. That's correct.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I can see Todd's network. I could produce a long section from it. It's already all set up. Todd's done all the structure naming. He's gone and done the branch sequencing, so I can publish that. I can look at it in the vertical grading editor. I just can't change it, right? Because that's Todd's, right? I can produce long sections of any road. I can cut sections through the model. I can get volumes. I can do everything that I would have done before. The only difference is, I don't have access to edit that. That's with Todd. But if Todd decided to change that basin for me, I would feel that change. Anything I designed over that basin, basically that underlying surface, Todd could change for me. And all I do is what you'd normally do. You'd resample and keep going. So if I wanted to put a low point in here, I could. If I wanted to put some sort of structure that's built off the back of these two surfaces, I could. Okay, I don't think there's anything more to say other than that we would keep shuffling. I would keep making changes. I would share back to Todd. Todd would make changes for what he's controlling. He would sync them and share them back to me. We could have a third person involved who took both our design contributions and published drawings for us if our office was set up that way. So I think we're sort of at the tail end of that discussion.
Excellent, guys. No, it's really good. And look, we've got a few questions coming in as we speak, so maybe it's a good opportunity just to jump into some of the questions. One of them is actually related to Model Viewer. There are questions arising about whether or not Model Viewer will respect data shortcut surfaces. So I suppose this is sort of going back to the bones of it, is how a civil site design operates with data shortcut surfaces. Will it let us use them? I guess the short answer is, my understanding is that no, Model Viewer doesn't support a data shortcut surface, but a data shared surface is supported. So if you are sharing surfaces from civil site design to civil site design, then yes, that would be supported. Can you guys validate that for me?
Well, the NS, right? The NS surface, and I've got Model Viewer. I've started Model Viewer. I can see every Civil 3D surface, whether it's come through a data shortcut or not. I can also see every civil site design surface, whether it's come from my drawing or through a data share. So in terms of surfaces, everything that's in the drawing, however it got here, is available to me to use.
Fantastic. Okay. Now, it'd be interesting to see with the NS whether or not that actually displays, but only because that question has come. Oh no, there you go. Well, there's the answer. Fantastic. Yes. Actually, interesting point about whether or not the data referenced data shared pipes would actually come across as well, and go and be seen in model viewer.
Yeah.
So just while Shane's doing that, a couple of other questions have come in. So variations in the design data form, are they shared? Well, yes, they are. As Shane or Todd demonstrated when we opened up to Lawn, you can actually see the variations that Shane had made to actually administer a different template for the latter part of that particular rotary, so that had come in. So that answers that one. Is there any way that you can relinquish control or give administrative control to somebody else over the original of a string? So, for example, can Todd give someone else the basin so they can change it?
Todd gives access to the data folder in the drawing. That is the only way.
Yeah.
We don't have a promote option, which is what data shortcuts would offer you. The originator of the data is the owner of the data. But if Todd was to park his data folder and his drawing up on the VPN, absolutely you could take that and do what you want to do with that as the authoring drawing and data folder you could use. I've sort of disconnected Todd. I guess Todd's disconnected me. Todd can't access my data folder. He could access my drawing because I put that on the VPN.
Yeah, and mine's exactly the same.
I didn't put the data folder on the VPN. Now,
No.
I could go and do that. I could, right now go to General, set the data path, and I could copy it up to the VPN. And then if Todd opened the drawing, because the data path is looking at the VPN location, Todd could then effectively use it. Now the only challenge is what Todd was talking about UNCs, which is a unique network connection sort of deal versus what is a map drive. So Todd's map drive for public is V and mine is Z. That'd be the only sort of thing that might be a challenge.
Yeah, that's just a almost like a protocol. If you're in one organization, you'd hope that everyone had set up the same map drive network so that everyone's
Well, it's the same with XREFs, isn't it?
Yep.
Unless you're using relative XREFs, you're using absolute path, you end up with the same problem, I suppose.
Correct, but XREFs, I'm pretty sure, support like data shortcuts, a UNC path as well.
Now, it's probably just important to say about the data shortcuts. If they go missing, so if they get moved or relocated, a form will display, and it will ask you to go and find the data shortcut folder. So if they get relocated for whatever reason, you'll be prompted when the drawing opens or when you run a command to go and resolve it. You could ignore it, but then obviously that data would become unavailable to you in every way.
Sorry.
No, go on, Todd.
I was going to say, I did actually say at one point that I was going to show people if there's a function in the software to edit data shortcuts. And I think Shane's just going to bring it up for me now. It's a thing called Data Shortcuts Editor. It's just a little app that you can run, and you can actually locate your project in the system, and you can view the data shortcuts. So what Shane's showing you now parallels to what shows in the Civil 3D interface, but it allows you to actually physically edit the location of the data shortcut. In case you've used mapped instead of UNC or UNC instead of mapped or mixed the two, you can actually pick it. Yeah.
Wait a sec.
You got to pick the folder down.
Wait a sec.
So yeah, you can actually review the data shortcuts. So I think the VPN's giving Shane a bit of grief.
Yep, it surely is.
Bring
Bring on the NBN, I say.
But yeah, I was remiss of me I forgot that I was going to bring this up, but I did discuss that said that there was going to be a way I could show you how to do it. So this is like a little separate element that sits inside your installation of Civil 3D. So you go to your Civil 3D in your start menu, and in there's a little program called Data Shortcut Editor. It allows you to edit them.
At the end of the day, what's
C3D
actually happening is
Yeah.
just a path relationship is created, right? So every one of those paths that we made is actually an XML file. So if you didn't have the shortcut editor, which actually does make it really nice if you use it properly, not like I did, what it will actually do is very neatly show you the path of origin for where it's going to read the data from. So unlike what Civil Site Design does, we actually just make a copy of our data into a folder. The data shortcut is actually a link. All right, so it's going to go, oh, here's the path to the drawing, and I want that object out of the drawing. And if you move the drawing, you're going to bust that path. Okay, and this toolkit here, the data shortcut, it'll let you fix that.
But this is prime time, guys, because we've actually had, literally as you started to discuss this, the question came in, what if I move my project externally to another PC? So this is an example of a user taking their project with data shortcuts home and then opening up the project on their home computer with all the data shortcuts. And effectively, we've just answered that. So that's fantastic.
You could use the data shortcut to edit it, but if you actually opened it in the drawing and all the pieces remained in the same place, just in a different location, so the relativity was there, you'd probably just get a warning message on the data shortcuts that just say it's broken, and you can just go repair, and it will actually potentially find it for you.
Yes.
We'd have to break it to show you the the connection, but yeah, it gives you a little warning symbol on the item in the prospector, and you can choose to repair, and then if you don't get it right, it'll ask you to locate the original source drawing. So you go and find that drawing again, click on it, and then it would prepare it for you in the background.
I guess if there's any other questions, we can start destroying our world by doing exactly that, Todd.
Well, do you want me to rename the data share?
Yeah, just rename C3D data to something else.
There you go, just renamed it. So if you try and synchronize your surfaces, you're probably going to get a break. Depends on how quick the changes take effect.
So the data shortcut editor would allow you to fix up lots of them at once, because Civil 3D will let you fix them up once it sees them. You can right click and repair, but you've got to do them one at a time. If you use the data shortcut editor, you can push this as a collective. It will make lots of fixes, basically.
Maybe it actually is catching up with us. Don't know. Let me move the folder then. I have renamed it. Let's go cut. I'm going to drop it in here. Fundamentally break it. There you go. I've just moved it completely on the server. So if you go and try and connect to it, Shane, if you go down the bottom to the data shortcuts, if you actually tried to click on it down there,
validate. Yeah, sorry, it's validate.
You should get an error. Yeah,
I jumped a bit too quick, but yeah, it's validate data shortcuts.
And it should find an error now because the folder has been moved fundamentally. Interesting. Try and create a reference.
It's still pointing to that spot. It's like it's not. The validate should do its thing.
Could be a lag in the VPN.
Well, yeah, the option is I'll save the drawing and reopen it.
Oh, I've definitely replaced it.
No, I can see it's not there.
Yeah, I busted it big time.
Anyway, the story is you will get a symbol, the exclamation mark and the yellow shield. Basically, then you've got an option to repair, and you can go and find the original drawing, but you need to find the original drawing.
See, mine has completely lost the connection. So my data shortcuts don't even appear anymore. And let's see if my alignments fail.
So, folks, if you have got any other questions, just while the guys are intentionally trying to break it, that would be great. We've got maybe a few minutes left, just to grab any last questions. So feel free to pop them in the Q&A panel. Actually, I'll probably mention it now while you guys are doing that. We've got, you'll see on the next slide, on the final slide, we now have a suggestions and feedback web page, which allows you to provide us with any suggestions that you have for webcasts relating to any of the Autodesk products we support. and civil site design and stringer surveys. So if you've got any ideas or thoughts on Webcast, you can go to our website and you'll get the link for that very shortly. And also feedback. So any feedback on this webcast, it does help us improve. We want to make sure that as we're doing a fair number of them now, nearly one a week at the moment, want to make sure that we can improve them. Just while I'm talking, we've had a question come in. What have you guys found works best for when working remotely? So i.e. VPN or BIM 360, what's sort of the preferred solution, if there is one?
Well, look, we've certainly had a play with a variety of them. If you're interested in data shortcuts, look, the VPN, if you can get your VPN sorted out, you're basically looking at your server where you would normally network save your data, pretty much exactly the same as what you used to look at it. So if you wanted to have the lowest disruption to your system, if your system is set up to save to the network, the VPN is a great option. If you're struggling to set the VPN up, or there's big latency issues, if you're transacting drawings, so if you're actually going, well, if Todd and I had done this and I had said, rightio, Todd, I've just worked on a drawing, over to you, and I close the drawing, Dropbox would be fine. You know, BIM 360 is fine, and BIM 360 can do more. Pretty much anything that cloud shares data would then be fine. And I know a few organizations that do use Dropbox very successfully for that sort of approach, where somebody's working on a drawing, when they're finished, updates in the Dropbox, the other person grabs that updated drawing, does something, pushes it back. The benefits of the VPN method is that we're able to set up data shortcuts, which sort of insulates Todd from me disrupting his drawing. We have been playing with BIM 360. It's certainly very well geared for Autodesk software. It's got a good understanding of the Civil 3D side with the data shortcuts. They go quite nicely into the BIM 360 frame. Certainly, your drawings can cloud share up there. BIM 360 will take a whole bunch of other files, so you could centralize your project up there. And BIM 360 has the added benefit of versions. So every time you save a drawing, it will flag it as a different version. And I understand we have drawings 50 meg, 100 meg, maybe more a piece. So when you've got 20 of those, you've added a lot of data. It is easy to kill off old versions, but the great thing about BIM 360 is when you go in there, it'll have V1, V2, V3, whatever the latest copy is, and you could walk back to an older copy. Some of the things to note: civil site design data. There's some data files that BIM 360 doesn't take in, so I wouldn't be storing the civil site design data in BIM 360. I'd be using that set data path to pick a location. It could be a network location, but I'd be picking a location for the data for civil site design external to BIM 360. So I don't know if I've muddied the waters. I've
managed to break it.
Good.
Can you see my screen?
I can. I'll just finish this. So we've played with all. We've sort of played with all three. Our best experience has been the VPN. Mainly because we know where the data lives. You know, it's structured already, so we just kept going. But BIM 360 has certainly some benefits, certainly for version control, drawing compare, centralize a project, limiting user access. There's a whole bunch of extra controls that it would provide. Thanks, Todd.
No problem. So it took me a bit to bust it. Not only did I rename the project folder for the Civil 3D data shortcuts, I also shifted the source location for one of the files just to break fundamentally the connection.
I'd love to say that data shortcuts are amazing. They just keep finding and fixing themselves automatically. That is super. But you've busted it.
Got to remember the connection is to the drawing, not the shortcut. The shortcut's just to facilitate the connection. So we had to break the location of the drawings relative to each other to force the break. And if you do get a broken shortcut, you get this sort of error flashing up for your alignment. So all you need to do to repair it is you just right click on it, go repair shortcut. And it'll ask you, where is base models live now? So I shifted base model to living in here. I do that, and I go repair all, and then it'll go through and reconnect them all back up. So that, depending on the level of break that you get, that's one way of repairing them. The other one is, as Shane talked about, you could use the data shortcut editor and preemptively fix them if you knew that you deliberately shifted the locations of everything and you want to reconnect the data shortcuts because you know the new paths. Okay, that's it from me.
Well, guys, thank you very much. I'm going to reclaim the host, which I've just done. I'm going to just share my screen. Sorry, folks, if you have got any other questions, I'm going to show you where you can deposit them, and then we can answer them outside of this webcast. So I'm just going to very quickly share my screen. So first of all, guys, thank you very much. That was a really great, thorough example of how Civil 3D data shortcuts can be implemented, and also the inclusion of then civil site design and how we can share the data. So it's fantastic, very thorough overview of how that works. In fact, not really an overview, more of a tutorial. So so that'd be excellent. So for those of you that want to refer back to what you've just seen, there will be a recording available probably next week due to the fact we've got the Easter break tomorrow. Normally it would be up on Thursday, sorry, on the Friday, but maybe have a look. There will be a webcast next Thursday, which is the AutoCAD tips and tricks. We're running them pretty much every week, as I said earlier. Then if you want to find out more about the basically any webcast resources that we have for upcoming webcasts, look for registration links. They're all via the webpage that you can see there. Also suggestions and feedback, a very, very short little form at the bottom, which will allow you to provide us with your suggestions and any feedback about any webcast that you've attended. So I guess that leaves me to say thanks, guys. Thanks very much for your efforts today.
No worries. Happy to show you what we know.
Fantastic. And yeah, we hope you're all staying safe and well, and we hopefully look forward to seeing as many as we can next week at next week's webcast. Thanks very much.